It's there. I'm back. Gosh, it's been a long time since I've updated you all, so I'll try to keep it brief, but a lot has happened in the realm of microscopic colitis. Life has been busy, so that's why no update, and also trying to figure out what exactly is going on. Don't worry, I brought my notes. Um, so yes, I've also been thinking about what other videos might be helpful, and I had two thoughts. So if either of these are useful, feel free to just like say, yes, that would be useful. One that I'm realizing that I think would be helpful would be a video about how to advocate for yourself with your doctors. This is something that I had to learn. I did not understand intuitively how to do that. So I learned a lot from a lot of trial and error, but also from my husband. And so I think with chronic illness, I've realized there is a tax on you as a patient, even when you have fantastic doctors. And I really like my physicians, that you have to sort of own some of this yourself. So I started recording these videos because this is what I wanted, but I couldn't find when I was first diagnosed with microscopic colitis and then with autoimmune hepatitis. So okay, so one video idea is advocating for yourself with your physicians. That was news to me. Some people know it. I didn't know how to do it. Still learning. The other idea I had was talking about traveling. How do I travel, especially with a colitis? We had 2 weeks in France last month, September, which was fantastic. And I realized it took a while for me to learn and understand what I needed to do to feel more comfortable in traveling. And everyone's different. I don't have the energy I did 15, 20 years ago, but I still love to travel, and I've learned a lot about how to adapt and be able to do that, um, even with conditions. So anyway, those are just ideas, more general topics that I could talk about. The other one I get a lot of questions about is diet. Um, if you're interested, go back and watch my naturopathic missteps videos, because diet is it's a whole thing. Um, but maybe something's there. The answer is no. You do not have to go vegan. Um, if you want to go vegan, go vegan. Anyway, back to the show, back to the plot. So when I last shared with you all, I was a couple months into a microscopic colitis flare, we thought. And this was leading up to my visit with my gastroenterologist to understand why, even though I was on the same medication, were my symptoms so severe. I've been to my gastro 2 times since then. And like, look at all of these notes. I have all of these notes and all of the things that we've been trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So backing up a little bit, I think what's frustrating about a flare is you can't understand necessarily why that has happened. And even after meeting with Dr. B twice now, we still don't know. And when I say we, I mean he doesn't know, but I come very prepared with all of my notes, all of my questions. And I think for that flare, and then I had it got better, and then I had a mini flare up in August. I cannot figure out what caused these things. There was no event of food poisoning, which I've had before, like really severe food poisoning. There is no sickness. There was no anything. There was no additional stress. Actually, the one I had in August was after vacation when I was feeling less stressed. So it wasn't really clear. And I think I don't love that. And Dr. B doesn't seem to love that either, in that if we don't know why this is happening, that's not great, because we're trying to understand like what's the source of what's happening. So I had come in to this appointment trying to understand what exactly is going on. Is it related to, this angle is not perfect. By perfect, I mean, this is a phone. So the end. What the heck is going on with the colitis? I also had the test showed pancreatic insufficiency. So went to understand like, what is the actual root cause? Is this something related to the pancreas? Is it the microscopic colitis doing its thing? And as a reminder, I also have IBS, which I know is not a diagnosis. And if you want to talk about frustrating things, talk about IBS. I don't understand, like, cool for you if you own it. I don't understand how people are like making IBS a thing. You don't want any of this stuff. Like, I don't know, there's a fine line between me of owning it and being like, yay, look at me. I'm in a lot of pain. So what happened was the idea was to start weaning off of the medication if I was able to, and then we were going to retest the pancreatic enzymes. Because when you're on those artificial enzymes, obviously you won't test as insufficient. So I slowly came off of that, and then it's Creon has a couple of different enzymes, but it's the elastase that they test. And it was a little odd because after having moderate pancreatic insufficiency, according to the first test, my second test was normal, like really good. And so I was like, what is going on? Okay, so we had this one test that said one thing, and we have this other test. It's the same test, massively different. It would be like in the hepatitis world being like, you have it, you do not have it. And you're like, what is happening? Why is this testing so different? So that was the first thing. I'd also found that my cholesterol is not fantastic. Not totally a surprise, but another thing to try to understand. So I was doing some follow-up for that. My LDL is a little high. And then I went down the hole of cholesterol, which one does, obviously, and got some follow-up tests, and it's on the edge. But if you've had your cholesterol tested, there's HDL, LDL, but actually it's the ApoB is the one that you want to look for. So we're trying to look at different pieces of this puzzle that might unlock some things. But everything else on my blood tests have shown up as normal, which is really, really good. So there are a lot of things that we can rule out. From all of the testing I had done previously, there was no sign of parasites, of infection. And then it was just something, what's up with these pancreatic enzymes? So the goal this summer and what I was trying to do is to slowly wean off Imodium. I got a little bit scared because one of the nurses from the practice had basically said, you can't take Imodium, it's not a long-term treatment. And me being me, I started to worry because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't get off of it. I was sort of at this like 2 Imodium prophylactically that helped me like live life. So I wasn't really sure what was going on with that. As the end of the summer came, we went to France for 2 weeks in September, and my goal was to get through that trip before making any changes. And so then when we got back after that trip, which is now a little more than a month ago, I went to no Imodium at all. And it's sort of working. So I'm not in, I would say, an active flare anymore. And part of this is like just the body is going to do the body stuff. But coming back to this last appointment that I had with Dr. B was like, what is this? Because it's when you only have a few data points, you're trying to understand like what is happening specifically. So I got prepared, and as I said, like I write down all my symptoms, all of my questions, so I can come prepared to talk. And so 2 weeks ago, I had my follow-up visit, and we think that I'm out of the biggest part of the flare, but we're still, again, I just say we. I feel like we're in this together at this point. Not just my doctor and I, but you and I, we're in this together. I feel like I'm in a stable place-ish. It feels like being just kind of on the edge, as in it's not fantastic, it's also fine. And it's hard to know sometimes with diseases like this, what's normal. Is this just what it's going to be from now on? Like, is this the new normal for microscopic colitis, the IBS? Maybe this is just it. But I'm the type of person that wants to have answers. And that's been one of the most frustrating parts of this. Look, like for the hepatitis, don't love it. Actually, a much more serious, potentially serious disease, but it's a clear diagnosis. There are tests that we can take, that I can take. It's something that we can maintain. Actually, I have my blood test coming up on Friday for my hepatitis to make sure we're all copacetic still. But between the blood markers and the FibroScan and the biopsy, and then symptoms can inform like, how is my liver doing, right? And we can have some sort of sense of where it is. There is so much going on in the gut. Just like, what is it? And there can be multiple issues. There are also things that are more transient, being more susceptible to infection, taking longer to clear, like food poisoning and stuff. And then there's things like SIBO, which is hard to test for and we don't fully understand. Anyway, there's just a lot going on. And then you think, if I just knew, I could make it better. But that's not necessarily true. Maybe not. So where am I now? I am out of the biggest part of the flare. I think stress was certainly a part of it. I could tell you that coming back from vacation, I felt a lot better. I was like, okay, that's not sustainable, that type of stress. I didn't feel it until it was removed. And then that was like super helpful. But now it's just more tests, more trying to understand. And I think there are a couple things that we're hoping to learn. I'm going to retest the enzymes, which is good. And that was just me getting curious as to help me understand how they could be. I mean, like the range at the laboratory I used tested for pancreatic enzymes, the elastase, was between 0 and 800. And my first result was 100 and my second result was 700. So if it's 0 to 800, that's basically the whole range. And so trying to understand what, and 2 points doesn't feel super useful. So we're going to go to the third data point now that I feel I'm fully out of the flare, long off of all the enzymes, to understand what has happened with that. So that's fantastic. And doing just another round of even deeper tests to understand what is going on. Talk about that after it happens. I feel like any test that's available, I'm just like, just do it. Just let's like see if we can learn anything, because it would really be nice to know, is there a pancreatic component to this? Because as I shared in my last video, the pancreas enzymes can be caused by or the cause of a colitis thing, which is it. I would like to know. I have not bought a pancreas stuffy. I know you all know I have my liver one. I also have, I don't think I've ever shown this to y'all. This is the antibody one. Isn't it cute? And this detaches. Isn't that adorable? As someone with autoimmunity, I wanted to get a little antibody. And I don't know why, but when body parts have eyes, sorry, liver, aren't they adorable? I love giant microbes. Just stuff like this makes me happy because I can envision a happy liver. Anyway, focus. So one is to really not rule out, but to say, don't think that the pancreas is involved. The fact that the numbers were normal was great. I would prefer, like, as I said, I don't need anything else. I would just like us to say, like, think we're good, or just put that on the panel of every 6 months or yearly monitoring to keep a check on it. Okay, so that was one. Second was that, a whole set of tests. Second is that talking to the doctor, I was expressing my concern about like Imodium, not my favorite medication in the world, but it works with these flares. As I was sharing before, I was taking it prophylactically, so at the same time twice a day to calm the flare, like from a functional standpoint. So come to find out, Imodium can be a maintenance medication for people more with IBS than the colitis. But like 1 or half an Imodium a day, if that helps my body stay out of flare, that's an option. And I had this moment when I was like, do y'all talk like doctors and nurses? I know it's super hard. There's such a, I don't know where it's like where you live, but where I live in Washington State, there's just a shortage of doctors. There's a shortage of gastroenterologists, particularly. I'm an existing patient, and it takes a long time to get a follow-up. It's like 3 to 4 months is what I had to wait for my last follow-up. And then the next one will be 6 because I'm out of flare. But if you're like trying to get in, it takes a long, long time. And so I understand that, physicians are busy, that nurses are doing a lot of that extra work. They have virtual visits and you're communicating through the portal. But it was kind of the sense of like, do y'all talk? Do you like look at my file? Because sometimes the information is different. And so that's why having that time to talk specifically with my doctor, to give credit, I feel like the practice is great once you're in it. And they are generally 30 minutes that you get with the doctor, which I appreciate, because you have a lot of questions and you're trying to understand and like unwind what exactly is happening. And when it's far apart, you're just like, please, like I want to get through all of my questions. So if I go into flare, probably not the most ideal thing in the world, but the Imodium prophylactically seems to work, at least like make symptoms manageable. That being said, my question was, what else, based on my symptoms, I don't know how I wrote it or how I said it, just trying to understand what other options existed for me. So I think I shared this a long time ago, but I'm on 2 medications for the colitis slash IBS. Again, pretty similar symptoms. I take mesalamine. It's also called Lialda, and that's a common medication for people with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. Not the first line for microscopic colitis. Those are steroids like budesonide. See previous videos on why I do not take budesonide. But I take the mesalamine, and then I also take a medication called hyoscyamine. Hyoscyamine is a muscle that specifically is like cramps in the soft muscle tissue, like the intestines. And so it's supposed to like provide some relief for that. And it does. So in what used to be normal times, these medications work great. I don't take it lightly about potentially taking a new medication, but for more severe IBS, and this is the question, is it that the colitis is managed and this is IBS? I thought he would recommend a colonoscopy. He did not. I did not ask. By the way, you should get a colonoscopy if you're 45 or older, or if you're like me and you have symptoms that might suggest like bowel disease. Colon cancer is incredibly preventable. Get screened. Maybe that's the video I should make, how to prep for colonoscopy. You should do it. You should absolutely do it. But for now, we're not going to do another one. I'm sure I could ask. But the other class of medications, or another class of medications that we haven't looked into, would be tricyclic antidepressants. And these are antidepressants that aren't like first line treatment for depression anymore. But they're known to relax nerves in the gut. I think I wrote down nortriptyline. I don't know, because I'm not taking this medication. Because I take medication for my generalized anxiety disorder, I need to work with my psychiatrist after all these tests. If we don't cover anything about the pancreas or in all the other regular tests, this could be a way forward to say, okay, this is still causing you symptoms. It's making it harder for you to have the quality of life. And so the tricyclic antidepressants would be one that we could consider. Again, have to work with my psychiatrist because I'm already taking some medication and we need to watch those interactions and make sure that they're not impacting my anxiety. And then Viberzi is the one that you may have heard of for IBS. This is for primarily women who have severe IBS. That's a little harder to get, but knowing that those options are there is nice. What we didn't talk about, and what's even further out from that, would be things like biologics, so infusions, which for some people can provide the relief that they need. Anyway, this was not supposed to be a 20-minute video. A lot has been happening. I am chasing down all of the things, and I feel like it's at least manageable. I guess I'll end on a positive note, which is I would never wish to have this. I would never wish that anybody had this. But now I feel, back to the beginning of the video, I feel like I trust myself. I feel like I can confidently describe what's happening in a way that my physicians can understand, that I will get clear on my questions, and that there's work to do and acceptance to do and not having control over the situation, that we may never know. And that's not something my gastroenterologist or my hepatologist can provide. Those are things that I have to understand. Um, and also things that feel maybe big or overwhelming may not be clinically significant. So starting again, it's been a lot of learning, and I didn't want to learn these things. But I think it's been helpful and put it in perspective, and to see there's this fear that I have always of going into a flare and not being able to come out of it. And so dipping in and out this year for the past 6 months, have not loved it, but it's helping me be more resilient. It's helping me understand the things that I can do, the modifications that I need to still have a happy, healthy life. So as happy and healthy as it can be. So that's the colitis update. I hope to be back soon. Well, I don't hope to be back soon with the hepatitis update. I hope that's a non-update update, that everything's fine, and then it'll be early next year to get the full examination. Thanks for listening again. Like, I'm just a lady sharing my story. If there's like a topic that you're interested in, whether it's like prepping for a doctor's visit and advocating for yourself, traveling with microscopic colitis, or maybe it's colonoscopy prep, because it's very important that you get screened, let me know. And be safe, be well.